There's a conversation happening in quiet living rooms around the world that nobody wants to admit exists. Behind closed doors, when the grandchildren have gone home and the phone calls have ended, many seniors are sitting with wounds that didn't come from illness or accidents. These wounds came from the people who were supposed to love them most, their own children. You might recognize this silence. Maybe you've felt it yourself, that moment when someone who calls you mom or dad speaks to you in a way that makes your heart sink. That instant when you realize the child you raised, fed, worried about, and sacrificed for has somehow forgotten that you're still a human being deserving of respect. The shock of hearing your own flesh and blood treat you like you're a burden, an inconvenience, or worse, invisible. If you've ever felt this way, if you've ever wondered how the relationship with your children became so complicated and painful, you need to know something important. You're not imagining it, you're not being too sensitive, and you absolutely don't have to accept it. Just because you're older doesn't mean you've lost your right to dignity, respect, and basic human decency. What if the greatest danger to your peace in these precious years isn't failing health or financial worries, but the people sitting across from you at family dinners? What if the very relationships you spent decades nurturing have become the source of your deepest pain? This isn't about blame or cutting ties with family. This is about recognizing that even love has boundaries, and even parents deserve to be treated with kindness. The aging process does make you more vulnerable in ways you might not expect. Your body moves differently, your energy shifts, your needs change. But vulnerability doesn't mean powerlessness. Being older doesn't mean accepting treatment you would never tolerate from anyone else. And needing help sometimes doesn't mean surrendering your right to be treated as a whole person. Many adult children unconsciously begin to flip the parent-child relationship as their parents age. They start making decisions for you, controlling your choices, speaking about you as if you're not in the room. Sometimes this comes from genuine concern. Sometimes it comes from fear of losing you. But sometimes, unfortunately, it comes from impatience, resentment, or the mistaken belief that age equals incompetence. You're still a parent. You're still a person. You're still worthy of respect, consideration, and love that doesn't come with conditions or strings attached. The child you raised may be an adult now, but that doesn't give them permission to treat you like a child. Your age is not a character flaw. Your need for help sometimes is not a reason for shame. Your slower pace is not an invitation for disrespect. The first thing you must never allow from your children is guilt manipulation. You know what this sounds like. After everything we've done for you, you're being difficult about this. If you really loved us, you would. This is emotional blackmail wrapped in family loyalty, and it's designed to make you comply through shame rather than agreement. Love that was given freely is not a debt that needs to be repaid through obedience. When you cared for your children, when you sacrificed for them, when you put their needs before your own, you did it out of love, not to create future leverage. The care you provided was a gift, not a contract. They don't owe you anything for raising them, but they also don't get to use your past sacrifices to manipulate your present choices. When guilt becomes a tool to control your decisions, it stops being about love and starts being about power. Healthy relationships don't require guilt to function. If your child needs to make you feel bad about yourself to get what they want, something fundamental has gone wrong in how they're choosing to relate to you. The second boundary that must remain firm is around financial control without your consent. Maybe they say it with concern in their voices. Let me handle your accounts. It's getting too complicated for you. But taking over someone's finances without their full understanding and agreement isn't protection. It's control. And control, even when it's motivated by love, can become a trap. Your money, whether it's a pension, Social Security, savings, or income from any source, belongs to you. Decisions about how it's spent, saved, or invested should be made by you or with your full participation and understanding. Being older doesn't automatically make you incompetent to handle your own financial affairs. Needing help with technology or having questions about complex documents doesn't mean you should hand over control entirely. When adult children take over their parents' finances without proper discussion and agreement, it often leads to a loss of independence that goes far beyond money. When you can't access your own funds, when you don't know what's being spent or saved, when you have to ask permission to buy something for yourself, you've lost more than financial control. You've lost dignity. The third line that cannot be crossed is disrespectful tone or words, even when they're disguised as jokes. You're too old to understand this. Don't worry about it. It's too complex for you. She's a little forgetful these days, bless her heart. These comments, whether made to your face or behind your back, reveal an attitude that's deeply damaging to your relationship and your self-worth. Age brings wisdom, not ignorance. Experience, not incompetence. A different perspective, not a limited one. When your children speak to you like you're a child, they're not protecting you. They're diminishing you. When they explain things with exaggerated patience or speak about you in front of others as if you can't hear or understand, they're not being caring. They're being condescending. You've lived through decades of changes they can't imagine. You've solved problems they've never faced. You've learned lessons they're still figuring out. Your mind may work differently than it did when you were 30, but different doesn't mean deficient. Slower doesn't mean stupid. Needing to think about something longer doesn't mean you can't think at all. The fourth boundary involves being excluded from decisions that affect your life. We already decided you should move closer to us. We've scheduled the appointment for Tuesday. We think it's time to sell the house. When did your life become something that happens to you rather than something you actively participate in creating? Major decisions about where you live, how you spend your time, what medical care you receive, and how you arrange your daily life should never be made without your input and agreement. Being consulted after plans are already made isn't participation, it's notification. Being told what's going to happen to your life isn't care, it's control. Your children may have legitimate concerns about your safety, your health, or your living situation. Those concerns deserve discussion, consideration, and sometimes action. But the discussion should happen with you, not about you. The decisions should be made by you, not for you. Your voice should be the most important one in conversations about your own life. The fifth thing you cannot accept is the assumption that you can't learn or adapt to new situations. Don't worry about technology. It's too hard for you. We'll just handle the insurance paperwork. You don't need to understand how this works. This attitude doesn't protect you. It isolates you from participating fully in the modern world. Learning doesn't stop at any age. Your ability to understand new concepts, master new skills, and adapt to changes may require different approaches than it did when you were younger, but it doesn't disappear. When your children assume you can't handle complexity, they're not simplifying your life, they're limiting it. You have the right to understand how things that affect you actually work. You have the right to learn new skills if you want to. You have the right to ask questions until things make sense to you. You have the right to take your time figuring things out. Being older doesn't mean accepting ignorance about your own affairs. The sixth boundary that must be respected is the line between care and control in your daily life. You shouldn't eat that. You shouldn't go out in this weather. You shouldn't talk to him anymore. When concern becomes micromanagement, when suggestions become commands, when care becomes surveillance, the relationship has crossed into territory that's unhealthy for everyone involved. Caring about someone means wanting them to be safe and healthy. Controlling someone means making their choices for them. The difference is crucial, and it's often lost in families where adult children become overly involved in their parents' day-to-day decisions. You may need support, advice, or help with certain things, but you don't need a supervisor. Your choices about what to eat, where to go, who to spend time with, and how to arrange your daily routine should remain yours, unless you're genuinely unable to make safe decisions. Even then, the goal should be support and assistance, not replacement of your judgment with someone else's. The seventh thing you must refuse to accept is becoming an emotional dumping ground for your children's problems. You're the only one I can talk to about this. I need to tell someone, and you'll understand. I know you worry, but I have to share this with you. When your role in your child's life becomes primarily that of therapist, confidant for their marital problems, or repository for their stress, the relationship has become unbalanced. Emotional support between family members is beautiful and natural. Parents often remain sources of wisdom and comfort for their adult children throughout their lives. But when the support flows only one direction, when your conversations become dominated by their problems, when your emotional energy is constantly being drained without being replenished, something important has been lost. You care about your children's happiness and success. You want to help them navigate difficulties and celebrate their victories. But you're not their therapist, their marriage counselor, or their emotional dumping ground. You have your own life, your own concerns, your own need for support and understanding. The eighth boundary involves recognizing when independence becomes neglect, disguised as respect for your autonomy. You said you wanted to be independent, so we're giving you space. We don't want to interfere with your life. We thought you'd prefer to handle things yourself. Sometimes adult children use their parents' desire for independence as an excuse to withdraw support when it's genuinely needed. True independence doesn't mean abandonment. Respecting someone's autonomy doesn't mean ignoring their needs. There's a difference between hovering and caring, between interfering and supporting, between controlling and helping. When your children disappear from your life under the guise of respecting your independence, especially during times when you're dealing with illness, grief, or major life changes, that's not respect. That's neglect. You may value your independence and prefer to handle many things yourself. But independence doesn't mean isolation. Autonomy doesn't mean abandonment. Preferring to make your own decisions doesn't mean not needing any support, assistance, or companionship from the people who love you. The ninth and final thing you must never tolerate is public shaming or mockery, even when it's presented as affectionate humor. Mom's getting a little forgetful, aren't you, Mom? Dad moves pretty slowly these days. She's always been stubborn, but it's worse now. These comments, made in front of others, are deeply wounding even when they're delivered with a smile. Being the subject of jokes about your age, your abilities, or your quirks in public settings is humiliating. When your children present you to others as if you're a character in a story rather than a person deserving respect, they're undermining your dignity in ways that extend far beyond the immediate conversation. Everyone forgets things sometimes. Everyone moves at their own pace. Everyone has personality traits that might be endearing or challenging, but being defined by your limitations, having your struggles turned into entertainment, or being presented to others as if you're not fully present and aware is never acceptable, regardless of the intent. Setting boundaries around these 9 issues doesn't mean becoming confrontational or cutting off relationships with your children. It means having conversations about respect, dignity, and love that protects rather than diminishes. It means being clear about what kinds of interactions make you feel valued versus what makes you feel diminished. You can say things like, "I love you, but I need to be part of decisions that affect my life." You may mean well, but this behavior doesn't feel respectful. I understand you're concerned, but I still deserve to be treated as a capable adult. I appreciate your help, but I don't appreciate being spoken to that way. These conversations aren't about creating conflict, they're about creating clarity. Many adult children don't realize how their behavior affects their parents. They may think they're being helpful when they're actually being hurtful. They may believe they're showing care when they're actually showing disrespect. The goal isn't to punish your children or make them feel guilty about their treatment of you. The goal is to preserve the love and connection you share while establishing boundaries that protect your dignity and their respect for you as a person. Healthy relationships can withstand honest conversations about how to treat each other better. Sometimes these boundaries will be tested. Your children may push back, argue that they're just trying to help, or suggest that you're being unreasonable. This is where your resolve matters most. Boundaries without consequences aren't really boundaries, they're suggestions. And suggestions can be ignored when it's convenient. You don't have to accept treatment that makes you feel small, insignificant, or powerless. You don't have to smile and nod when someone speaks to you disrespectfully. You don't have to agree to arrangements that don't honor your preferences and needs. You don't have to pretend that hurtful behavior doesn't hurt just to keep the peace. Your children learned how to treat people with respect by watching you. They learned about dignity, kindness, and consideration from your example. When they forget these lessons in their interactions with you, it's not unreasonable to remind them. It's not too much to ask for the same treatment you would give a stranger, much less someone you love. The relationship between adult children and aging parents is complicated, emotional, and constantly evolving. Both sides are navigating new territory, dealing with changing roles and shifting needs. But this complexity doesn't excuse disrespect. The challenges of aging don't justify accepting treatment that diminishes your worth as a person. You may be older, you may need more help than you used to, you may not be able to do everything you once could. But you're still the person who raised them, who loved them through their difficult years, who celebrated their successes and comforted them through their failures. That person deserves to be treated with the same love, respect, and consideration that you've always shown them. The years ahead can be marked by relationships that honor your wisdom and value your presence, or they can be shadowed by interactions that make you feel like a burden. The choice, to a large extent, is yours. You can accept whatever treatment comes your way, or you can lovingly but firmly insist on the respect you deserve. If you've been quietly tolerating any of these 9 behaviors, you're not alone. It's not too late to speak up. It's not too late to set boundaries. It's not too late to heal relationships that have become hurtful. And it's never too late to reclaim your dignity and insist on being treated with the love and respect that should be the foundation of any family relationship. You deserve not just to live long, but to live with honor, respect, and peace. Your later years should be marked by relationships that celebrate who you are, not behaviors that diminish who you've always been. Your wisdom, your experience, your perspective, and your feelings all matter just as much now as they ever have. Your voice matters, your boundaries matter, your peace matters. And you have every right to insist that the people who love you remember these truths in how they choose to treat you, speak to you, and include you in the life you're still actively living. You've earned the right to expect better. You've earned the right to demand respect. You've earned the right to live these precious years surrounded by love that lifts you up rather than behavior that tears you down. Don't let anyone, even your own children, convince you otherwise. If this message has spoken to your heart, if you recognize yourself in these words, if you've been carrying pain that you thought you had to bear in silence, you're not alone. Many others are walking this same path, learning to love their children while protecting themselves, finding ways to preserve relationships while insisting on respect. Your story matters. Your experience could help someone else who's struggling with similar challenges. Your wisdom about navigating these difficult family dynamics could be exactly what another person needs to hear. Sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is simply let others know they're not alone in their struggles. The dignity you claim for yourself today creates a legacy for tomorrow. When you insist on being treated with respect, you're not just protecting yourself, you're modeling for your children and grandchildren what healthy relationships look like. You're showing them that love and respect can coexist, that care doesn't require control, that family relationships work best when everyone's dignity is honored. Your later years can be marked by peace, respect, and relationships that honor who you are and who you've always been. That peace starts with recognizing your worth and protecting it with loving but firm boundaries. You deserve nothing less than to be treated with the same love and respect you've spent your lifetime giving to others.